When I was young, there was nothing exactly stupid about the world. In fact, in the good old days, there was the thump and the tug of it, the way it heaved itself like a stone, yanked, so to speak, in glory. The way it fell up, and then crushed up again, getting newer and newer, louder and sweeter. The way it watched its own face fall between its fingers as though its face were a handful of gold coins. I think I might have known the whole drag of everything going upwards, a tide that pulled me with it. Actually, I know I did. You were part of all this, by the way. And the sky, well, where to begin? The sky was so adult, not imbecilic, or thin, or so-so, or girlish. Did I outgrow it? Did I drink it, shoot it, find a way around it? Did I get inside it and drive off in it? Forgive me. But on my way to work this morning, even though the sun was on fire and the trees were up, I was in the apocalypse. Death is not what you think it is. It's actually what I think it is. This poem's got some nipples in it, I'm afraid. It's quite early in the day, maybe. It's called The Uncertainty Principle. I wouldn't swear to it, but it seems to me that light owns the surfaces of things, dotting them indiscriminately with its capricious particles. Pock, 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 pock. Each is a paintball pellet, which, on splatting, contributes to colour up the ravenous darkness, rendering it fit for purpose, that purpose being to be seen. I admit I memorised whole portions of you, and under various lighting conditions. There were particles everywhere, an embarrassment of riches. You held out your hands, palms up, and you smiled at me as they rained down on you like dolphins. I find it very hot the way particles can exist so saucily in two places at once, don't you? Your nipples, if I might say so, have something of that quality upon their quantum hooters, pock pock. I would shut out my black mouth if I could. Not everything is explicable. Exemplar, I know what I mean, or I think I do. This poem's called The Chocolate Car. The little chocolate car has no wheels or windows and a body shell that's a sweet wrapper. Everything inside the car is made of chocolate. The engine, the battery, all the little pipes and cables, the petrol, the oil, the water, the brake fluid, the steering wheel and handbrake, the gear stick, the foot controls, the dashboard and carpeting, the seats and seat belts, the sweet wrappers in the door compartments, the driver and passengers, their flesh and blood and bones, their skin, their hair, the brains in their heads, the food in their stomachs, the feces in their bowels, the urine in their bladders, their clothes, the money in their pockets, and the dirt on their shoes, as well as absolutely all of the empty spaces in the car are made entirely out of chocolate. The chocolatey smell that escapes from the car's body shell is the perfume worn by the chocolate woman who sits completely engulfed in chocolate in the chocolate passenger seat. She smiles to herself with chocolate lips over chocolate teeth in a chocolate mouth that's crammed full of chocolate. She smiles because she can sense that she's pregnant, with an embryo that's a minuscule, errant, miraculous bubble of air. In my most recent book, there's a character, there are just 3 poems about him, and he's a professor of Renaissance literature or something, but he's also a hydrofoil. Do you know what a hydrofoil is? It's like those boats that raise themselves up. And this is one of the poems about him. It's hard to see Hamlet as some kind of everyman, bellows old Professor Hydrofoil above the sound of his own engine's biscuity shout as he skims across the pale Baltic waters lit with light. The sky is crazy for him, his riveted body, all chrome fuselage, instant abdomen, and what looks from here to be a thing like kindliness. He is, in fact, so shiny, so polished by his mother's early love, that we can see ourselves reflected in his tubular skin. We can see our bent smiles, which are the floaty grins of children who hold their parents' hands and watch the happy dogs that run through parks, throwing off their ridiculous beards and laughing, laughing, laughing. But wait, Prof. Hydro has gone and got all Syrio. He's docked himself in a study in an old house in Palookaville. He's donned huge human clothes. He looks out onto a cold, wet street with the fallen leaves of trees stuck on it. The arrangement of the threads in his tweed jacket is such that arrangement's own woolen heart is broken. There's nothing on the radio because it's switched off. Oh, how I'd love to own a pair of those long-toed clown shoes. I think I'd find myself so engaging in them. I'd put them on, sit down upon a chair, reach out my legs and happily behold my oddly shod feet. I'd stand and slap their long lengths on the ground to generate a flapping sound like a crack, crack. And then I'd hurry up to see you. I'd hurry backwards up the stair to show you my 2 new shoes. And you'd turn around and apprehend myself emerging up from them, a genie drifting from its polished lamp, a plant sucking at its just watered ground. The dead are helpless. You can do exactly what you want to the dead. You can call them filthy names. You can poke your uncovered arse at them. You can stick them in the eye or spit on them, and still nothing bad will happen to you. You can drag the dead outside into the street, and there you could piss upon them. You could beat one even further into death with a brick, and no one can point a finger at you. And if they do, you can tell them to fuck off and mock their squeamishness by blubbing like a baby in mimicry of the feebly sensitive. It occurs to me just now that you might also want to stand as stiff in a doorway, have it held in place by means of ropes, and then with all your vehemence slam the door against it, hear it greet the dead's unwincing face just before it bangs against the jamb. You can always confound the dead. You can act like you're going this way, and then you can go that way and punch them, and they'll just stare up at the ceiling with that emptied look of theirs, emptied as an egg is from its shell. And the dead have nothing at all to use against you, but your horror at their passivity, which looks sometimes so like the unresisting sweetness of your own poor martyred soul. No more, Mr. Nice Guy. This then, what you actually witness here before your very eyelids is an actual blooming waste of time in action, in real time. I squid you not, certain, shall we say, people, with a certain, shall we say, cheek, have had a go at me about punctuality and punctuation. Specifically, the use or otherwise of ampersands and obscenities and rubbish and whatnot, as well as my peculiar drinking and poking fun at people with or without disabilities and so on. Well, from now on, from the very next thing I do onwards, I'll do exactly as I blinking well please, which is to be marvellously wretched and frightened and broken and hidden. This poem's called Confessional Poem, and it was in The Guardian yesterday, which was nice. Forgive me. I've been tempted to make use of dissonance in an effort to resonate. I've walked all over my principles in day-glow flip-flops. I've attempted to schmooze when I should have been rough and abusive. In the locked bathroom, I've allowed my id to goose my poor ego, scarring it mentally. I've papered over the cracks with bore cracks to obtain a crack effect. I've admired the cut of my own jib, juddering stiff on a wester. I've planted weeds in other people's gardens on purpose. I pretended my eyes are windows and got drunk in a room behind them. I pretended everything's just terribly droll and awful. It's called Collaboration. It was 4 p.m. when Manning and I sat down to discuss the poem and his role in it. An imaginary wind buffeted and rattled the remote French farmhouse window like some sort of device, like a signifier of something trenchant and solemn. Manning said he was so excited by the prospect of the poem that he was actually rock hard, as he put it. And what about I set it in a hotel room and sought him out with a Latvian stripper and half an ounce of good quality gack. And with that, quite matter-of-factly, he pulled his Johnson out of his zoot suit pants to show me his predicament. His member, though my gaze, I can assure you, recoiled from it with more haste than a handwood from a hot coal, looked something like a monstrous jewel in the setting of the surrounding grey fabric of his trousers, or like perhaps a misplaced floral buttonhole that would have seemed less offensive had it protruded from the suit's lapel. It appeared to me that its grotesque rudeness buzzed against its, dare I say it, rather feminine beauty with a metallic ringing sound. But perhaps that was merely tinnitus brought on by the stress of the situation. I'd never known Manning to talk or behave in this way before, and even though it soon came to me that he'd been suffering from concussion, having been hit full on the head by a lance in a jousting accident, and even though within a day or so he'd recover fully and return to his innately sensitive and feminist self, I still always felt a little wary in his company thereafter. For what I'd heard and seen that afternoon must surely have lain dormant in him through all the time I'd known him. And perhaps since then I consequently feel a little less secure in the company of all my friends and acquaintances, as well, of course, as in the company of myself. Yeah, and it's in the Ledbury anthology, I think, this one. Yes, I admit that I have ate that once cool and heavy egg that would one day have hatched a clever goose of gold. I cooked it in a pan until it smelted from a hard into a runny yolk, and then I promptly drank the molten yellow. I gulped it down, felt it start to burn away my tongue and gums and teeth, whose residue then blew away as smoke. I felt it coursing down my roasting throat, through the squiggle of my blistered viscera, all the way beyond my screaming shitter, from which it oozed and swarmed and spread wet metal excrement about my seared balls and buttocks before it slowly made to thicken. And once I died of pain. Then sometime afterwards I ate away my flesh and bone. I sank my corpse in acid till no bit of it remained, but just this shiny, winding cast, this meandered, single golden sprue that rises from its golden stand and, displayed like this, so well describes a fool. First off, take note of my bespoke rabbit folk, pale, no meat on them, a transient enthusiasm as they burst from squiggly silos, nibbling, 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 nibbling. Then see how my consort bod escorts me in its tight suit like a goon. And look how I leaf so slowly through your autonomous scent in the labyrinthine library of your presence. This world is like edible earth to me, edible, certainly, but full in the sense of crammed. Me, I am but a pin, sharp, slid into it, new, or I'm old, a blunt socket that receives existence's three-pronged plug that sucks my polished electricity. I feel myself also like a dog feels its wallop. Me, I'm the national anthem of somewhere shaky. You're as neat as a particle. I don't particularly mean you to touch me exactly. So this is the last poem. Thanks very much for listening. It's called The Fire Hose. If I was, I don't know, walking down, say, a street, and I happened to come across a group of, I don't know, firemen, and they were fighting, say, a fire, then I might imagine, might I not, their fire hose to be a long and beige salami. And then I might imagine, might I not, that I could take a slice of that salami, that I could peel it of its ring of canvas skin, and then I'd have the lens, the freshest monocle, through which, if I held it to my open eye, I'd probably see a group of firemen with a cut hose, shouting angrily. Thank you.